In what ways does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? I feel that my poster overall follows the established conventions set by slasher films in the industry. I have adapted a conventional narrative by employing the sexually frustrated male to spy on and ultimately kill the dumb blondes, leaving a battle between the antagonist and the final girl. I feel that this narrative has been reflected in my poster image, as the clear binary opposite between the two contrasting images is overt. However, within my image, I feel I have challenged the image conventions seen in the Halloween 2 poster, as I have used both colour and black and white images to further enhance the contrast. Also, I decided to make the iconic knife black and white to create a more subdued and subtle slasher element to my film, commonly not seen by an audience, making my film stand out from the rest of the market. Also, within both images I have used direct address from the characters to my audience. This in turn attracts my audience and makes them feel like they too are being watched, thereby drawing them into the film and encouraging them to give a preferred reading. I have further used the convention set by the industry of taking my images from the disruption stage of Todorow's narrative, showing through the blood on the knife and the costume and makeup of the girls, as cut and dishevelled clothing are apparent. This would also make an audience want to know the exposition of what they see on the poster. I had decided to make a horror film with a subgenre of a combination of slasher and stalker. I decided to add a stalker element to my film to develop the conventions already out there. I used Maniac as my inspiration for this, as the unconventional stalker film shows elements of slasher which is not commonly seen. I decided this would make my product more interesting for an audience, as the cross-media package would show the elements of both slasher and stalker, leaving them unsure of what they are expecting, and allowing them to lose their sense of security. This is further reflected in my poster image, as I have employed my antagonist looking down at the girls, asserting power and authority. It creates a spying effect. Within my images, I've employed Rick Altman's theories of semantic and syntactic representation to show my genre. By using semantic iconography such as blood, the knife and the ripped clothes, it helps visually show the genre of slasher to an audience quickly. The syntactic elements are also clear, as the explicit divide between the two images show the traditional themes of good versus evil and males versus females. These plot lines and themes show a direct correlation across my media package, and by showing them in my poster, it helps convey the narrative to an audience. This is also presented through my title, I Spy, a play on words. In my poster, I was careful to fully comply with the institutional conventions previously set by the film industry. I felt that it was important for a poster to follow some conventions, as if it is too unique, it may not appeal to a mass audience. I used a conventional billing block in the sans serif font Steel Tongs to portray a professional and high-quality poster. By using the conventions here, it allows an audience to clearly see the billing block, and by having it in a conventional position at the bottom of the page, it follows the layout usually seen within slasher posters. I felt it was best not to challenge this, as the billing block is an institutional feature to my poster, and so challenging or developing this could result in my poster being seen as amateur. I've used the institutions of Dimension Films and Twisted Pictures, as I felt these institutions had previously produced such successful slasher films such as the Scream franchise, and it would be well recognised by an audience. In my poster, I felt it was important to use the original conventions of representation seen in my text analysis. Posters such as Halloween 2 and Smiley see the antagonist as a white male who is portrayed as sexually frustrated and targets women. I decided to perpetuate this stereotype, as it is well recognised by an audience. The women used in my poster too follow the conventions set by the industry, such as the dumb blonde and brunette final girl. However, I have challenged the conventional and semantic iconic mask traditionally employed by the killer to make my poster unique. By doing this, I felt that it would immediately present an air of realism to the audience, as the poster is the first thing they would usually see. The fact that they could relate this to their life would encourage them to further invest their time into my cross-media package. I feel that across my poster I have applied and developed the cinematographic conventions set by existing slasher posters. I have perpetuated the convention of using a medium close-up shot of my protagonist, as I felt that it was important for an audience to see the costume and makeup of my characters, as these carried great connotations of my genre. However, I decided to use an extreme close-up of my antagonist's face to stand out on my poster. This is previously seen on the Smiley poster, and I thought it carried great effect. By inserting this onto my poster, I hope that it too would add a stalker element to my poster and just see his face. Also, by doing this, I felt it enhanced the direct address employed by my antagonist. On my poster, I have used a traditional serif font for my title and tagline. I felt that this would develop the convention of using a distorted sans serif font and would employ a sophisticated element to my film. Also, by using a serif font, the narrow, subtle text pragmatically links to the idea of my antagonist seeking and hiding around when spying. This font is not usually seen in slasher films, and so by doing this I found it hinted that the film isn't like any other slasher film seen in the industry. By employing a tagline in my poster of "Who is in his little eye," I felt that this helped convey the narrative to an audience before they see the website or trailer. The play on word pun is taken from a familiar nursery rhyme of the eponymous I Spy, creating a chilling and alarming connotation for my audience as it is a well-known game played by children. For my website, I have followed the traditional convention and used the same image on my poster here on my website to create a cross-media package. I decided this would show a clear correlation between the print and web work. On reflection, I feel that although my cross-media package shows a strong link, furthering the house style I wanted, I could have used a similar picture to the poster, but changed it slightly to give an audience a further insight into the film and create more of an enigmatic layer to the film. Within my website, I felt it was important to follow the conventions seen in my text analysis of Halloween 2 and Maniac, and further the conventions of real media products such as the Scream franchise and Smiley. By doing this, I have used interaction as a main focus on my website, by using a traditional navigation bar. Here I have made links to pages such as spoilers, meet the cast, similar to real media product links such as casting crew in Halloween 2 and videos in Maniac. By using similar links, I felt that it would make navigation for an audience simple and familiar, allowing them to easily locate what they want. I've also used synergies with social networking sites such as Twitter and YouTube to create a further link for my film. These conventional synergies, seen in media products such as Sinister, Smiley and Halloween 2, reach out to applications that my target audience would use, either on their laptop or on the go. I've also incorporated a synergy with movietickets.com to allow an audience to buy direct tickets and get showtimes. By having this convention, it encourages an audience to have a preferred reading. I found that although this synergy isn't made on the websites I analysed, it is still a convention widely used by other franchises within the horror market, such as Sinister. On my website, I positioned my billing block under my trailer with the institutions next to it. Although some films challenge this convention by only having the institution or the billing block, I decided to use both, as I felt that because I Spy is a new film and isn't part of a franchise, it was important to give all the information I could to persuade an audience to engage with my film. By adding the institutions of Dimension and Twisted Pictures, of whom are recognised by the film industry, my audience would see the established institutions supporting my film, like the Scream franchise, so that existing fans of the genre would be more likely to watch my film, as an audience would think that the film is of the same quality or plot line. In my trailer, I felt it was important to perpetuate some traditional aspects and conventions of other slasher films. However, I wanted to challenge the genre conventions, but in a way that was still recognisable to an audience. As the trailer is usually the last thing from the cross-media package an audience would see, I felt that I could experiment with taking conventions set by other genres to create a combination of aspects within a trailer. Within my trailer, I felt it was important to include Todorow's narrative stages of description and recognition. Therefore, I made this the bulk of my trailer, as I felt that these would be the scenes most desired by my audience. However, I decided to challenge Todorow's narrative order. By placing the equilibrium in the middle of my trailer, shown via spy shots, I felt that it broke up the disruption and built up suspense and tension for an audience. Also, within these equilibrium shots, by employing a spy scene, although it reflected the protagonist in that equilibrium, an audience would know that all is not well, further conveying the narrative. I was careful when making my trailer to follow my treatment and to show the semantic and syntactical elements within. I used Altman's theory of semantic and syntactic iconography through the repeated scenes of the knife, blood, and close-up of the girl's makeup to help portray the narrative. I've also used plots and themes such as good versus bad and male versus female across my trailer, through the use of contrasting gender-specific shots. The main plot shows through my treatment. The antagonist seeking the female protagonist is shown through spying, and the eventual disruption is only the intimacy of both sexes, following the conventions of a stalker film. However, looking back, I feel that this should be more evident, as it's a fundamental part of a slasher film, and although there were some scenes of this, it would have been more effective if scenes like that were more frequent. Within my treatment and trailer, I decided to challenge the convention set of age by using only teenagers through my whole film. It removes the moral compass figure usually portrayed in slasher films such as Gale Weathers in the Scream franchise. By doing this, I felt that it would take away the sense of security usually held by an audience. Within my trailer, I wanted to follow the conventions set by institutions. I have shown both Dimension and Twisted Pictures logo at the start of my trailer, followed by the green screen. I thought that keeping them in their conventional positioning would be more effective for an audience, as the institutions are well established and would be recognised by an audience, so they would automatically think this film would be of the same standard previously made by these institutions. I wanted the representation of my cast and locations to be conventional, as I felt that by making a slasher film in any other location than outside in an isolated wood would lack the desired effect of a slasher film. By using real places and real people, it creates the idea of realism within my film, and convention of the genre. In my cast, I wanted to represent my antagonist as strong, fearless and masculine, all connotations that stem from a traditional male antagonist. To do this, I have used a low-angle shot from the victim's perspective looking up towards the antagonist. By doing this, it made the victim look weak and helpless with powerless. However, the antagonist held superior, creating a sense of foreboding for an audience. When filming, I wanted to develop the traditional cinematography conventions usually seen within a slasher film. To do this, I employed the use of a handheld camera to shoot most shots. By doing this, I felt that I was challenging the conventions of a slasher by placing the perspective from a third party to the victim or the antagonist, something more commonly seen as a stalker film. I further challenged the convention set by omitting an establishing shot. I felt that this shot wouldn't have told much narrative within my trailer, and I thought that by using extreme long shots instead in the isolated wood, it would show the location whilst in the description stage. Within my narrative, I felt that captions played an important role of conveying the narrative and building up tension for an audience. I used captions such as "Revenge is best served dead" and "If you go down to the woods." These short syntactic puns would be recognised by an audience, with the modal auxiliary "if" to suggest an antagonist is giving options, creating almost a torturous vibe. Furthermore, the use of interrogative sentences create a sense of authority and panic that could be said to reflect the panic of the victims that feel in the trailer. I have used a black background and white text for my captions to create a stark contrast to make it easier to fade in and out and to stand out to an audience. However, I didn't use my tagline in my captions. Developing conventions as a tagline usually comes from the trailer. By doing this, I felt to add a new layer to the narrative. When editing my trailer, I employed a non-linear structure to remove the sense of security for an audience and to avoid storytelling. I've used a montage towards the last third of my trailer to show the description stage quickly for an audience. By increasing the pace, I felt that it allowed an audience to see hidden scenes from the trailer that carry great importance, but doesn't give them enough time to process it, leaving them with an enigma that would also encourage them to go and see the film via preferred reading. I've also developed editing conventions in a slasher, as usually every edit is a cut. However, I've used fade in and fade out dissolves and cross dissolves to give time for an audience to feel safe again before a new scene plays. Giving an audience this time also builds any tension that remains. However, on reflection, I feel I should have used more cut edits to show a stark contrast between the antagonist and protagonist to fit the slasher genre more. The sound in my trailer is subtle and fluent. I employed a tension soundtrack throughout to build up the ambience in the trailer. This is a common convention used by slasher films, and it has a high success rate, so I decided to mimic this. I've used narrative in my trailer to help portray the storyline and exposition. However, I've made sure I've employed asynchronous sound to remove the security of the audience. By doing this, I felt that it made my trailer have an eerie and mysterious air to it. I decided to challenge conventions of sound by having no or little dialogue in my trailer. I felt that by doing this it left the trailer as more enigmatic, as the only speech would be the narration. However, on further inspection, I feel that dialogue would have been effective, especially in the equilibrium stages to show the exposition.